أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين وهو خير ناصر ومعين وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Alhamdulillah, many of us had gone downtown to participate in the protest for the release of Shaykh Ibrahim Zakzaky of Nigeria. And inshallah, hopefully it can have some effect to put pressure on the Nigerian government. But what we wanted to do is to try to extend that same idea of trying to support the mission of Shaykh Zakzaky tonight here at the masjid. One of the beautiful things about religion, about Islam, is that all those who call people towards Islam, they never call people towards themselves. Shaykh Zakzaky, he never called people towards himself. He's not one to want people to follow him for the sake of who he is, no. He's calling people towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's calling people towards religion. He's calling people towards faith, strengthening their faith. He's calling people towards the Ahl al-Bayt alayhimus salam. He's calling people towards the Qur'an. These are the things that he's calling people towards. And so, if we want to show solidarity with him, then that means to show solidarity with his mission. And that means to basically try to join that same mission that he's calling towards. And so in our attempt tonight to, inshallah, go over one of the surahs of the Qur'an, that we are doing nothing that he would not want us to do, that he would be pleased with this effort, and we're doing it with his remembrance, but it's something that he would be pleased with, inshallah. We also, the other reason that we're gathering here tonight to remember Shaykh Zakzaky is to realize that in this world there are two sets of laws. There's the laws that operate on the terrestrial realm, on the realm of the dunya, the laws that you and I are normally accustomed to. So we know, for example, if we want to get something done, we know how to go about and get it done. If I want to go from here to another place, I know that I need to get into a vehicle and I need to drive that vehicle through the road system that we have here to get to the other place. And that's one set of laws that we have. But there's another set of laws which don't operate at this level. They're a divine set of laws. It's basically when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he intervenes in the set of laws that are here and he overcomes them. And this idea that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does this is very clear. It's clear in the Qur'an, it's clear in the du'as that we have, it's clear in the ahadith that we have as well. And so we've been asked to do two things. One is to operate by the laws that exist in this world, which is what we tried to do when we went downtown and we tried to protest and tried to put pressure on the government of Nigeria to release Shaykh Zakzaky. We're using the laws that are in this world. But the other thing that we want to do is to turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that can override any law of this world. And so we've gathered here today to try to do dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to supplicate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Tonight, being the night of Arafah, there's certain du'as that are being suggested to recite. In one of these du'as for tonight, actually, I'm going to just read the translation of it. We're calling on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and on certain names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we say, for example, we say, I beseech you in your name by which Khidr walked on the high waves with the same ease that he walked by on level ground. in the laws that operate on our world, we can't walk on water. Right? We need to go on a boat, for example, if we wanted to go on water. But when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala intervenes, then certain things are possible. So He allows Khidr to walk on water the same way that he walks on land. We say, I beseech you by your name by which you parted the sea for Moses and drowned Pharaoh and his people and delivered Moses, son of Imran, and those who were with him. Again, in the laws of our world, to part a sea is not an easy task. It requires a lot of effort, a lot of technology. But when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala intervenes, He can do it very easily, very quickly. I beseech you by your name by which Moses, son of Imran, called you on the right flank of the mount, and you answered him and cast on him an endearing quality from yourself. I beseech you by your name by which Jesus, son of Mary, raised the dead, spoke as an infant in the cradle, and healed the blind and the leper with your leave. So these are just some examples that we have where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala intervenes and is able to do things through the power of dua. So one of the reasons that we've gathered here is to capitalize on this gift that Allah has given us, the gift of dua, because it is effective, and we have to realize that it is effective and that it can have a lot of results. Now, we're not necessarily going to be reading any particular dua. We're going to be reading a surah from the Qur'an, and I'll explain why. But here, what we're doing is we're trying to resort to the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to ask Him for release of Shaykh Zakzaky. Now, all of the Qur'an being the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, apart from the content, apart from the beautiful messages that are in the Qur'an, the very sheer fact of the recitation of it also has a power, also has an effect on our souls and on other things as well. And in fact, one of the things that I found out about after moving here is that there's a group of individuals who make it a point that collectively they want to recite one juz of the Qur'an every month. And that is a beautiful thing. And I wish more people would join that kind of effort, because this book that we have, it's a wonderful gift. It's a beautiful gift. And we have to make it part of our lives. And we have to let it seep into ourselves so that it can have that effect. And the sheer recitation, even if we don't understand what we're saying, but the sheer recitation has a barakah. Now, all of the Qur'an has this barakah, but there's certain surahs that have particular effects. So I want to read certain hadith that pertains to this surah that we want to look at today, which is surah number 82, called Surah Infitar. It's on page 587, if you have the Qur'an, the Usman Taha Khat Qur'an. The first hadith is attributed to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who says that one who accustoms himself to the recitation of this particular surah, Surah Infitar, he will be preserved from being shamed on the Day of Judgment. All of us, unfortunately, we have certain sins or mistakes that we may have done during our lifetime. And the last thing that we want is for them to be exposed in front of other individuals. One of the effects of reading this particular surah is that it will preserve, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will preserve us from being shamed on that day. His faults will be covered and his position will be rectified on the day of resurrection. And this is the part that we want to get to. And whoever recites it while he is imprisoned or held against his will, or he writes it while he is imprisoned, or he hangs it on him, then God will facilitate his release swiftly. So this particular surah that we've chosen is a surah that's been recommended for those who are unjustly imprisoned, for them to recite, or for others to recite on their behalf, to help in the release of those individuals. That's one of the benefits, the spiritual benefits that reciting this particular surah has on the individual. I'm going to recite one more, or I'm going to narrate one more hadith that is also pertains to this particular surah and this particular effects that this particular surah has. It's narrated from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, who says, the one who recites this while it is raining, God will forgive him for every drop that falls. I don't know if it's still raining outside, but if we recite it, inshallah, while it's raining, God, inshallah, will forgive us for every drop that falls. And reciting it on the eye will strengthen its sight. And any ailment or covering that afflicts the eye will also be removed by the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what we wish to do, inshallah, before we collectively recite, and at the end, inshallah, before the time for salah, on this special day and coming to the night of Arafah, that I'll ask you all to join me in the recitation of this particular surah with the intention, inshallah, to help in releasing Shaykh Zakzaky and his wife and those who are imprisoned unjustly, and to help them, and this is the thing that we can do to help them. Before that, inshallah, we'll just look at the contents of this particular surah for the time that we have. So we start out, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم, بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. The way that this particular surah starts out is it recounts certain events that will occur before the day of resurrection. Certain events that will occur on our plane before the day of resurrection. They're apocalyptic events. They're events that are very grand events, that are events that don't follow the norm of what we see today. And as you know, this being near the end of the Qur'an, this is a surah that was revealed in Mecca during the early period of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, during the early period of his propagation of Islam. And there he tried to focus on things that pertain to doctrinal issues, things to do with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or the resurrection. This particular surah has to do with the resurrection and also about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well. So it starts off in this way. إِذَا السَّمَاءُ انْفَطَرَتْ. Infatara means to be split open, to tear open, to be rent asunder. So it's saying that when the sky is torn open, if you were to go out on an empty field and look up in the sky, it will almost seem like it's a canopy. It's this protective canopy over us. Now imagine the imagery of this canopy being torn open and sliced open in the middle. That's the imagery that we've been given here for what will happen before the day of resurrection, almost indicating that those things that were protecting this realm are no longer going to be protecting it. That the age of this realm, the age of this earth is over now. The next one, وَإِذَا الْكَوَاكِبُ انْتَثَرَتْ. And when the stars scatter, when they disperse. Right now, unfortunately, because we live in very urban environments, we have trouble looking at the stars. You can't see them because of all the artificial light that we have around us. But if you go out, just on the outskirts of the city, and you look up, you'll see just a magnificent array of stars that are out there. And one of the, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he talks about the stars, he says how he's decorated that lower sky with the decoration of the stars. But he's also told us that one of the purposes of the stars is for the guidance of mankind in the darkness of the earth and the sea. And as you know, in the past, before Google navigation came, and before the compass as well, when it got dark, you wouldn't have the physical landmarks that you could count on around you, and so you'd have to look at the sky. And those people were experts, and they knew the constellations, and they kind of would be able to figure out the direction that they needed to go by looking at the sky. And those who were sailing in the seas, they would look at the skies at nighttime to figure out, okay, where they need to go, right? But the imagery that we're getting here is that when the stars scatter, Allama Tabatabai, when he's describing this, he uses the analogy of like a necklace that has all these beads that have been purposely positioned in certain places, and it's this beautiful array of beads on a necklace. And what happens if somebody kind of snaps that necklace and all the beads go falling down on the ground and scattering? That's the imagery that he conveys. That basically that idea of guidance is no longer there. So the age of guidance is over for this realm. وَإِذَا الْبِحَارُ فُجِّرَتْ. And when the seas and the oceans, when they merge together, فُجِّرَتْ actually means when they almost pierce through each other. So we have the seas, and then you have land bodies, and the seas are kind of kept at bay by the land bodies kind of sticking up. But imagine if those land bodies are not able to keep the seas and the lakes at bay. And there's large waves, tsunami waves, for example, and it just keeps coming onto the earth such that all the lakes, the different lakes that we have, they're all merging together. And one of the differences that between being on land and being on sea is what? On land, there's stability. But when you go in a boat, you're at the mercy of the movement of the waves. And it's hard for you. Sometimes you lose your bearing. People get motion sick, for example. So again, this seems to indicate that land of that time, the age of stability for our earth is no longer there. وَإِذَا الْقُبُورُ بُعْثِرَتْ. And when the graves are overturned, when what is inside the graves come out. This too is very interesting. Well, what do we have inside the graves? We have corpses. Generally speaking, we bury people when they die. We bury the corpses for two reasons. One is to honor them, obviously, to put them in a place in the earth. They were from the earth, their body was from the earth, and they go back to the earth. But also because we don't want to have corpses on top of the land, because what happens to corpses? They get decayed, and so we want to hide them. Well, this is indicating that those things that we're hiding, they will come out. So the age of hiding now is over. There's no longer any room to hide what is in ourselves. All of that is going to be out. And so you get now to the next verse, which is closely related. عَلِمَتْ نَفْسٌ مَا قَدَّمَتْ وَأَخَّرَتْ. That every soul will know what it has put before and what it has put behind, what it has sent forward and what it has left behind. There's different commentaries with regards to this particular verse. What does it mean to set forth or to send forward and to leave behind? One Tafsir basically says to send forward means all of the actions that we do in this world, we're sending that forward to the next world. Anything that we do, whether good or bad, it gets sent forward to that world. So what does it mean to leave behind? Well, to leave behind means to leave those practices behind that other people follow. So if I, for example, dig a well somewhere, and now I've done that act, and ostensibly it was a good act for the sake of trying to quench the thirst of people who are struggling. But it's not only that act that's going to be sent forward. What I've left behind now is this well that other people can make use of. And so long as they're making use of it, I'm getting the benefits of that as well. Well, similarly for things that are bad as well. If we leave a bad practice, for example, I write a book, and the contents of that book is something that will lead people astray. So it's not only the sin I get for having written that book in the first place, but any individual that now reads that book and becomes astray because of it, that too is on my shoulders. It's on their shoulders too, but it's also on my shoulders, right? That's one interpretation of this idea of sending forward and leaving behind. There's another interpretation that says that it's basically what we did in the beginning part of our life and what we did in the end part of our life, and obviously that means anything in between as well. So it's like on that day of resurrection, we'll see our whole life in front of us, every part of it. Right now we have selective memories about the things that we've done, right? We choose to remember those things that perhaps we're happy with, we're proud of, and we choose to forget those things that we're not proud of. But on that day, everything will be exposed. Then we get to the main question, and it's almost as if this particular surah is like, this question is the central question of this surah. It's like the central verse of this surah. And that's when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks us directly as human beings. And He says, Ya ayyuhal insan, ma gharraka bi rabbikal kareem. O man, what has caused you to be deceived about your Lord who is the most generous? This question that's being asked, it's not a question where there's an answer that's being expected. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as the Mufassirin tell us, He's reprimanding us, He's reproaching us. He's saying, what caused you to forget me? And what's interesting, it doesn't say what caused you to forget Allah. It says what caused you to forget your Lord who was the most generous, or your Lord who is the most noble. In other words, despite His nobility, despite the fact that He was your Lord and He was nurturing you, you still chose to be deceived and to forget Him. And then it gives other qualities of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. الَّذِي خَلَقَكَ فَسَوَّاكَ فَعَدَلَكَ. The one who created you and proportioned you and balanced you. This idea that some people unfortunately have, that from dead, inanimate matter, you can get consciousness that is self-reflective, that can conceive of universals, that can conceive of justice and these ethical principles that transcend the person himself, that from that dead inanimate matter you can get such a being just out of accident. That's the height of foolishness. If a person were to self-reflect, they'd think that no, there's no way that that my cause was accidental, that I'm just an accident of the cosmos. No, that there's a God that must have created me. So if we were to reflect, we'd turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But not only that He's created me, He's proportioned me, that He's made me suitable to live in this particular climate, in this particular environment, and that He's balanced me, that all the faculties that I have, all the body limbs that I have, that they're all well balanced and proportioned. في أي سورة ما شاء ركبت. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues. He says that in any form that He wished, He composed you. Right? And when we look around, we see that. It's amazing. We're not all replicas. We're not all imitations of each other. There's not like one human being and then everyone is a replica of it. No, each one of us has distinctions. We have individual distinctions, and Allah has like almost honored us by giving each one of us something that nobody else has. That's an honor from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He could have created everyone to be the same, robots that are completely the same, like you get in a factory, right? But He didn't do that with us. Every single one of us, He created in a different form, in a different shape. Now comes the answer to that question which Allah Himself is giving us. Why were we deceived about Allah? كَلَّا بَلْ تُكَذِّبُونَ بِالدِّينِ. This is the reason. We were deceived about Allah because we denied religion. That's one meaning of deen, as we know. So because we denied religion, that's why we were deceived about Allah. Or what seems more appropriate in the context of this surah, we denied retribution. We denied the idea of an accounting. We have a lot of people today, the New Agers, who talk about spirituality without religion, who say, oh no, I believe in some deity, but He's not the God of Abraham, but I believe in some deity, some being that's out there. And yes, after I die, it's not the end, my soul's going to be somewhere. But one thing they have a lot of trouble admitting to is this idea of judgment. They have a lot of trouble admitting to it. And why? Why do they have trouble admitting to it? Because if you admit to judgment, then that means you're held accountable. That means you have to be careful with what you do. That means every single thing that you do, well, you're being judged. So now I'm accountable. Now I have to watch over what I'm doing. That's the reason that they deny that part of it. But what happens when you deny that part of it is you end up denying God as well, and all the gifts that God has given us. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He talks to these people who have denied retribution, have denied justice. It's really strange. This idea of justice, by the way, it's deep down in the core of our beings. Everyone speaks of justice. Right now, when we went for the protest, we were demanding justice. And yet, for people to say that, no, there's no such thing as justice after, or judgment after this world, it's a strange thing. It's like, how could you say that? Every one of us knows and understands this idea of justice. We all demand justice for ourselves, at least. So we have it ingrained in us. So then how can you say that there's no retribution, there's no accounting that's going to take place afterwards? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala now, He's addressing these people, and He says, وَإِنَّ عَلَيْكُمْ لَحَافِظِينَ. Don't think that the things, because when you say that there's no justice, like there's no judgment, then basically I can do whatever I wish. And as long as nobody's watching me, then it's okay, I'll get away with it. Right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds these people that no, over you we have assigned certain huffaz, certain people that are guarding what you do. They're preserving what you do. They're writing down what you do. These are the angels that Allah has assigned for every individual. So even if you end up doing something in private, it's recorded. Kiraman katibin, these angels of nobility that are writing down all of our acts. And by the way, when they're writing down our acts, it's not as if they can just see our acts. No. إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ, right? Every act is based on the intention. So when they're writing down what we're doing, it's based on the intention of which we're doing them. يَعْلَمُونَ مَا تَفْعَلُونَ, they know what you do. There's no escape, basically. There's no hiding. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala now describes these two groups of individuals and their positions in the next world. And it's almost as if to juxtapose how they may appear to be in this world. So in this world, the abrar, the righteous, they may not have a very good situation. In fact, from the verse that we know, لَن تَنَالُوا الْبِرَّ, birr, right, abrar, from bar, and these are the people that have birr, So what's bir? لَن تَنَالُوا الْبِرَّ حَتَّى تُنْفِقُوا مِمَّا تُحِبُّونَ. You will not attain righteousness until you give of that which you love. In other words, they make sacrifices. So people like Shaykh Zakzaky, Ibrahim Zakzaky, who made sacrifices of his own comforts, of his own lifestyle, of his own home, of his own children. These are the abrar, right? They give of themselves. Where are they going to be? Right now, he's in prison. Where are they going to be? Inna al-abrara lafi na'im. They're going to be in bliss. There's no worries. There's like complete bliss. How about the other group that seems to have the upper hand right now? Wa inna al-fujjara lafi jahim. Fujjar are those that basically, they let everything open. They basically, they open up the dam or the wall of sin, right? Where are they going to be? They're going to be in the jahim, in the hellfire. And there's no escape from it. The next verse tells us, يَصْلَوْنَهَا يَوْمَ الدِّينِ. They're going to enter it on that day of judgment. There's no prison break for them. There's no way out for them. وَمَا هُمْ عَنْهَا بِغَائِبِينَ. And there's no way that they can ignore this. There's no way that they can be absent to it. You see, right now in this dunya, you can turn a blind eye to certain things, to certain oppressions, to certain injustices. The Nigerian government right now is turning a blind eye to the state of Shaykh Zakzaky and the fact that he needs this immediate medical assistance. They can carry on with their lives. They can have their meals. They can go to sleep at night, and they're completely oblivious of his state. But on that day, when they have to encounter what they have done, no, they can't be oblivious there, right? They cannot hide there. Wherever they try to hide, they're going to see it. Now this surah ends with some more questions. وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا يَوْمُ الدِّينِ. So where have you heard that? What does that seem similar to? وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا لَيْلَةُ الْقَدْرِ. What will make you know what the night of Qadr is? Here it's asking, what will make you know what the day of retribution is? Again, this is not a question demanding an answer. It's trying to show the gravity of this, that day is indescribable, that there's no way you can describe it. You can't put it in words. And then it repeats that same question, ثُمَّ مَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا يَوْمُ الدِّينِ. Again, to show the intensity of the gravity of that day, the importance of that day. يَوْمَ لَا تَمْلِكُ نَفْسٌ لِنَفْسٍ شَيْئًا. The day in which no soul will own anything for the benefit of any other soul. In other words, there's no one that they can rely on. There's no security forces or soldiers to make sure that I'm okay, that I'm safe. No, there's no one that they can rely on. وَالْأَمْرُ يَوْمَئِذٍ لِلَّهِ. On that day, the affair is completely in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I think we have 10 minutes or so, inshallah. Yeah. So, for those of you who came a bit late, the reason that we had chosen this particular surah to go over is for a number of reasons. One was obviously to benefit from the book and the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He's revealed in this book, because that's precisely what the mission of Shaykh Zakzaky was, to try to raise the position and the faith of the mu'mineen. So that's one reason, and through that we can show our solidarity. But another reason is because of the special benefits that this particular surah has. And that is that for a person who is imprisoned, who is kind of held captive against his will, that this particular surah, and now you can understand, once we've gone through it, you can understand why. Like, you can see the relationship between the contents of this surah and how it can be effective in terms of helping them get released from their imprisonment. So what I would like to do now, inshallah, is for all of us together, just in these last moments before Maghrib, for all of us together to recite this surah with the intention and with the hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make easy and make swift the release of Shaykh Zakzaky and his wife and those who are imprisoned unjustly. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إذا السماء انفطرت وإذا الكواكب انتثرت وإذا البحار فجرت وإذا القبور بؤثرت علمت نفس ما قدمت وأخرت يا أيها الإنسان ما غرك بربك الكريم الذي خلقك فسواك فعدلك في أي سورة ما شاء ركبك كلا بل تكذبون بالدين وإنا عليكم لحافظين كراما كاتبين يعلمون ما تفعلون إن الأبرار لفي نعيم وإن الفجار لفي جحيم يصلونها يوم الدين وما هم عنها بغائبين وما أدراك ما يوم الدين ثم ما أدراك ما يوم الدين يوم لا تملك نفس لنفس شيئا والأمر يومئذ لله صدق الله العلي العظيم. It's not a very difficult surah to memorize. I would encourage the mu'mineen to try to memorize it and try to recite it regularly. And inshallah we can derive the benefits that has been mentioned for this particular surah. وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين.